All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so used to doing it on Zoom. I'm like trying to introduce myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Todd Menard.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Today, we're going over the Greater Phoenix Metro Market statistics for the week ending May 18th, 2026. Let's see what we got. 77 days closed on market this past week. A month's supply of 4.02. Absorption rate was at 24.88. Average list price this past week, $781,093. Average sale price this past week, $634,218. And our list price to sale price retention came in at 97.03. Active inventory, pretty flat, 26,508 available properties. Pending is sitting at 4,709, and closed units for the month to date at 1,515. Looking at new listings, 2,142 taken this last week, a little lighter than we have been experiencing over the last few weeks. Days on market for active is at 92 and closed at 75. Lower left-hand side, as we have our price ranges. This, again, during the week is our active inventory during the month. When we do month-end, this switches to month-end closed inventory by price range. So the red indicates that these are the only two portions of the market or segments of the market that contracted over this past week, which is meaning that each market is still, as far as inventory is concerned, has plenty of property. Looking at the spreadsheet, as we always do, 2,400 is what we're looking for. 2,142 is what we had this past week, 2,479 the week before. So, we did have an inventory issue this week where we just barely replaced what we had. 2,092 new listings last year, this same period, 1,900. So you can see that even though we're reporting that it was less this week versus last week, we always want to look at those two center columns to just see what was it like last year, this same time frame. And it's always a good reference. 26,508 is the active. That's 577 of those are in the coming soon category. There is 19,922 single family non-distressed, 2,057, and that should say single family up there. New home construction is 2,057, and non-distressed, there we go, 25,991. Looking at the under contract accepting backup offers, the pending, the contingency sale markets, we're sitting at 4,709, down about 200 units. And what this basically means is we have approximately 200 buyers less than we had week over week. But again, that's 500. Look, the last year we had 4,336, about 4,300 the year before that. So, we've got more buyers by far. We've been talking about that being a 400 to 500 units, 400 to 500 more buyers in the market right now than we've had for the last 2 years. Looking at closed inventory for the month to date, we're at 3617. We were at 1515 last week. We were at 3685 last year. So we're just under a little bit of where we were last year, same time. Looking at month supply, we're at 4.02. So again, if we're under, and when I tell everybody, hey, we're in a buyer's market, seller's market, Mike and I love to volley on that. But when we talk about that, what we're talking about is just rules of thumb. So we're saying that your market in Chandler may be different than the market in Peoria. Maybe it could be that, pick a community specifically over there. Anderson Springs maybe is even different than the Southeast Valley. So you as the agent, you matter more than I do, than anybody does, than Lawrence Young does at National, because you can do these numbers for yourself in your own communities that you do business. And there is nobody, and I'll say this 100 times, you can control your marketplace if you know the statistics in the market where you're doing business. So that being said, again, 4 months supply. It really is indicative. We are in a seller's market, but that could be, again, by community, by area. But as far as the overall MLS is concerned, that's the number. We look at median, which is the bottom number here, 470. We were talking about that bouncing back and forth, 458, 470, 460. We're still looking to see that number, come down just a little bit. Looking at days on market for sold, as we said, 77. If we're in that 70 price range, we're doing really, really, really well. And I think that's the most important thing to take into consideration is what's really well. Well, way over on the left-hand side, all the way up to the top, it says ROT. That means rules of thumb. In the last 5 years, I've gone in and I've taken an average of the market in each market segment for each of the years of the last 5 years. And so these are the averages. 2,400 is what we're expecting for new homes, for new listings taken, 5,500 buyers in the marketplace. Scroll down to 2.5 to 3 months supply is really the sweet spot. We're not going to get there. There's not enough buyers in the marketplace. When we get up to 5,500 buyers in the marketplace, then the 2.5 to 3 will be the rule. But right now, if we can be close to 3, somewhere in the 3s, mid 3s, I think that would be really good. 70 days closed on market is the number to the left in the red box. And then, of course, 97.8% is the list price to sale price retention, meaning historically over the last 5 years, the average seller at the time they accepted the buyer's offer, not the original list price, at the time they accepted the buyer's offer, there was a 2.2% negotiation on that transaction. So if we go into the marketplace not anticipating that we're going to put an offer in at least 2%, or if you're a listing agent and you're not buffering your seller to be able to realize that there's going to be historically a 2.2% negotiation off whatever price they're at the time they get their final offer. And it could be right away, but it could be, weeks, months later, that would be ignorant of us. And then, of course, that number taken into consideration along with the number, the concessions, seller concessions are really where the transaction is negotiated. That's what you do. When we say you negotiate on behalf of your buyer, you're really not negotiating. What you're doing is you're finding out what the buyer's position is, and then you're coming to the table strategizing and packaging your buyer in that transaction appropriately, so that you got to know the seller's probably going to want to take a trim somewhere, but you anticipate that 2.2% as well. So those are the numbers for this week, Mike.